What if the Turks won the Battle of Vienna? A city of class. A city where greats such as Mozart performed. A city where Adolf Hitler fumed about his anti-Semitism, became a failed artist, and became a megalomaniac that eventually started a world war and killed millions of people. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Vienna, the capital of Austria, is a city of many things. It is also a city where the Ottoman Turks were defeated on two times, both in 1529 and 1683. You probably didn't know about that. In 1529, things were going well for the Turks. For the purposes of our video, we're going to focus on the 1529 encounter. And there's a reason for that. In 1529, the Ottoman Turks were at the pinnacle of their expansion and power, and were on the hunt deep into Central Europe. City after city fell to the Turks, but one city would not yield, and that city was Vienna. Suleiman the Magnificent was invading Central Europe and basically wiped out the Hungarian army at the Battle of Mohacs. So Suleiman, or however you pronounce his name, having conquered Hungary, saw some opponents to that status. Some man called Ferdinand or something came out of nowhere and then claimed himself the new king of Hungary. Well, Suleiman couldn't have that, especially when he needed a vassal state, to collect tribute from and all that. So he massed a huge army and then marched. Of course, there were some obstacles, namely the bad, soggy weather that killed a bunch of soldiers and camels. Poor camels. Finally, the Ottoman Turks were marching towards Vienna, and the European leaders had to do something about it. The walls were reinforced, the gates were closed, and the peasants were recruited for the job. Finally, the Turks arrived, depleted from the bad weather and all, which had taken a deep toll on the ranks. The Turks fought, trying to dig tunnels under the wall and such, but the Austrians found them and took them out before they could penetrate the wall. Finally, the leader of the Turks chose to retreat, considering how they were low on supplies and all. He did try 3 years later again, I had to give him credit, although he got bogged down and didn't really achieve his goals. So what if in an alternate timeline, somehow the Turks won? Well, the first thing is that Suleiman launched his campaign in the wrong time. You see, he launched it when the spring rains were making the entire place muddy, and that was precisely the wrong place to do it. If he had waited a few more months, perhaps he would have been spared that incident, and his artillery and men all would have arrived with minimal damage. So let's say that such a thing happens. Would the Turks be able to defeat the Austrians? Hard to say, but given much more artillery and resources, the walls would at least be severely weakened. Suleiman could then come later on and finish the city once and for all. This is what he did with another city called Buda, so this would likely be the method he used on Vienna. Then after conquering Vienna, what would happen next? Well, historians are torn over what the true intentions of Suleiman were. Would he stop with Hungary, or would he want to further advance into Europe? I think Suleiman would stop at Hungary, especially considering that the Battle of Vienna was basically the end of 100 years of territorial expansion by the Ottomans in that region of Europe. So let's say that Suleiman continues past Hungary, willing to engage the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. The two men meet on the battlefield, which I think is what Suleiman was aiming for. It's hard to say who would win this battle, but if Charles were to face Suleiman on his own turf, he would have the advantage. The Ottoman leader would be hundreds of miles from home. If Suleiman were to take Vienna, this would be a deep stab at Christendom. However, as in our timeline, the French would likely ally themselves with the Ottoman Turks, regardless of religion, to fight Charles V. So if this were to be the case, then the Turks would be given greater legitimacy and able to advance further into the European continent. Charles V was in charge of basically over 4 million square kilometers of land, and I think such a powerful empire would be able to halt the Ottoman Turks somewhere in Eastern Europe. The Turks would be in unfamiliar land, and their troops would be overstretched. So I think that after solidly gaining control over all of Eastern Europe, basically, and parts of Austria, they would reinforce their rule. However, we must also note that the European nations were in the midst of the Protestant Reformation, so if they were more concerned with that, the Turks would be able to penetrate deeper into their border. So with this chaos, it is possible that the Turks would strike deep into the heart of the Holy Roman Emperor. Could the empire itself be threatened? Possibly, if dissident German princes allied themselves with the Turks, which is entirely possible. Okay, so to sum things up, by the mid 1500s, what we are seeing is widespread unrest and chaos in the Habsburg Empire, which is embarrassed on the world stage, being threatened by a non European power. The formerly mighty Holy Roman Empire is severely weakened by the encounter, but it still survives. The Turks realize that they can play rival princes against one another in the Holy Roman Empire and support the Protestant cause to further cause divisions and violence. The Protestants gain a valuable new ally, one that will play a larger role in European religious affairs. In the 30 Years' War, we could potentially see the Turks fighting for the Protestants. In short, the Habsburgs receive a heavy blow to their power, and we could potentially see an earlier dissolution of the empire. The Ottomans may at first appear to be more powerful, but the strain of controlling the extra territory will only work against them in the end, and they collapse decades earlier than they did in our timeline. Being a greater player in European affairs would be more involved in European conflicts, quickening its demise. Well, that is the end of this timeline, considering what if the Turks won at Vienna? Paradoxically, even with such a victory, some point all empires get too big to govern, and the Ottoman Empire will collapse. It would overstretch themselves, and they will be self-inflicting a wound. Although we won't ever truly know, it is always interesting to consider how a single battle can change history forever. Thanks for watching. Scholar of the World, signing out. Subscribe for more great content, and click on this video to watch What If the Turks Didn't Take Constantinople in 1453. It's a really great watch, I recommend it.